with two congruent sides. Right? So I call those congruent sides the legs. Right? So I have two legs. They're congruent. Right? That top angle that is included between the two legs, right? Is that shaded one? No. It's the vertex. Right? We call that one the vertex angle. And then the bottom two, the two congruent angles we'll talk about, are the base angles. All right, so that's kind of what we refer to each one of those things as. So in an isosceles triangle, those base angles have a special property. They're the angles that are opposite the congruent sides. So those angles are congruent. All right, so if I look, angle A is across from BC. Angle C is across from AB. And so because they're across from the congruent sides, those angles are congruent. Okay? It works the same way backwards, right? So if you're given a triangle with two angles that are congruent, you can say the sides that are opposite those angles are congruent. Right? So it kind of works both ways with isosceles triangles. Okay? And then there is one other property that isosceles triangles have. So if you have a line that bisects, right? Anybody remind me what bisect means? Cuts in half, right? So any line that bisects the vertex angle of an isosceles triangle, the line is also going to be the perpendicular bisector of the base, right? So if I look here, I have this dotted line here that's bisecting the vertex angle B, right? So I have two congruent angles, which means it's perpendicular, beats at a right angle down here, right? And then cuts this bottom side in half, so I have the A to this point is congruent to C to that point, right? So any questions on kind of those properties? Not too bad, right? All right, so we look at a couple examples of isosceles triangles, right? So we look at ABC. Flipping the page is not an invitation to start conversations. So if I look at A, B, and C, right, and I know that C is 70, I have an isosceles triangle and it wants to know what A is. So what does A have to be then?
42.
70.
Yeah, that's right. I was looking at the other. You were close.
Right? So because it's opposite the other congruent side, I know that's 70. So that would be the answer for that one. Let's just say instead of asking for angle A, your final answer you needed was angle B. Could you guys find that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 180
minus 140
equals.
Yeah, 180 minus 140. 40. So you could find B if you needed to. Okay? So the other one looks at, and I notice that I have an isosceles triangle. Okay? And I have a line that's bisecting that top angle. And they want to know what is one of those angles up there. So what other, and I know one is 42. What other angle right now do I know?
Right.
90.
What, Kayla?
90.
A 90. Where's that 90 at? Yeah, kind of on that shared side. Right? I can label that as 90. So could I find that angle there? How would I do that? So do 90 plus 42 first. Right? Get 132. Yeah. 180 minus 132. So you get 48. Right? Which means x has to equal what? 48. All right, because that question mark angle and x are congruent. Okay, so there is isosceles trapezoids or triangles. Equilateral, a couple things, right? All the sides in equilateral triangle are congruent, right? And all the angles are congruent. So equilateral, right? All sides, all angles are congruent, and all the angles have to measure 60. Right? That should make sense because if there are three angles, 60, 60, and 60 gives me 180. Okay? So anytime you know three sides are congruent, you can say the three angles are congruent. It works backwards too, in the fact that if all the angles in a triangle are congruent, then all the sides are congruent. All right, so if I look there, I have an equilateral triangle, which means those two angles are what? Congruent. So how do I set up equations when they're congruent? Set them equal to each other. So if I do that, right, y minus 10 equals x plus 5, can I do anything with that?
Yes.
So you could solve for a variable, but is that going to get me anywhere in finding what those variables are? No. So this is one where it's great to know that they're congruent. Fantastic. It helps me no way, right? What else do I know about all the angles in equilateral triangle, though? Teresa? They equal 60, right? So I could set up two equations and say y minus 10 equals 60 and x plus 5 equals 60. And then just solve those, right? So what does y have to equal, Bryce? What does y equal? 70. Right? Ty, what does x equal? 55.